guys, Mustached. Tom here to finally review Palworld. Now, apologies for not uploading videos for the past few days, maybe, for sure. I have been actually a little bit more busy than I thought I would be. In case you were wondering, I have been volunteering at my home state convention 2025, so that's where I've been, helping people out, directing them, helping them find their way, making sure they get to the celebrities they wanted to meet, and so on and so forth. So that was all grand, but boy were my legs and body and mind tired after each day, so being able to record was a nightmare. But I'm finally done. And luckily the last day was the shortest day, so my body doesn't feel dead inside and out. Anyway, Palworld. Boy oh boy, is there a lot to say before even getting to the review of the video game on this one. I mean, by no means do I think Palworld was ever gonna win Game of the Year or even be, like, nominated by any stretch of the imagination, but if there was a title or a trophy for almost most fucked game to ever come out, I would probably say Palworld would probably get up there in nominations, maybe even win that one. Who knows, right? So, if you somehow don't know, Nintendo/Pokemon found out about Palworld, and at first it started off with a design controversy, and at first it seemed like there was some legitimacy, there was some deep dives, and none of that ended up really panning out anywhere. But Nintendo/Pokemon were far from done from fighting this fight with Palworld. Enter the goddamn vaguest of vague of them holding on to patents. Vague patents. Dangerous patents, potentially. Patents that would include throwing a sphere. You know, like how the Pokemon Tamer does, and how Palworld does. Those are about similarities in both those games. So, once again, Palworld was on the defensive. And, once again, Palworld managed to survive said patent. But wait, they weren't done yet. Nintendo/Pokemon went another step ahead and said, you know what, just summoning monsters. Let's have a patent that is just about summoning monsters, which would halt the progression of so many games. You have, even from Final Fantasy to other Pokemon games, by the way, probably, to Digimon, obviously. Obviously the target, Palworld, Monster Hunter, Yu-Gi-Oh!, just to name a few. Because I'm sure summoning monsters can incorporate a lot of other video games, if they, you know, if it even hints at that, I'm sure they would be in trouble. But for once, in that blue moon, once that patent got shut down, so Palworld managed to scrape by a third time after nearly getting assassinated 3 times by Nintendo/Pokemon. 3 attempts, 3 failures. So here we are. The game, as this recording is being done, still technically in its beta, quote-unquote. So some things may be subject to change, though I do think most of what I'll say will probably be in contact. Anyway, starting off with our lovely story, the game story just sort of drops you into these islands, and you create your character. Once there, you associate with any number of given pals, your starter pals, and throughout the islands you do pick up journals which expand upon where these other individuals came from, what these islands are doing, what they're causing people to do, how they're treating the pals, etc., etc. So nothing too crazy in terms of a story. Now, one thing I will point out, again, as the making of this video, I tried to stall this review, by the way, on purpose, to see if there would be any update. None so far, at least on this end. There seem to be a lot of lore implications about this tree island, and it's an object you can see in the world pretty much throughout most of the game. Sort of like Elden Ring, by the way. But alas, when trying to approach said golden tree, or tree in general, it was denied. Blocked off by this barricade of wall progression stopping. So, it would seem like this game is technically incomplete, or its story is, at the very most, incomplete, as of the making of this video. But I do eventually have to start moving on and playing other games, or uploading other games, because boy oh boy do we have quite a few new things dropping in the horizons. You know, starting off with some Expedition 33, in case you haven't been checking out my Twitch, to Digimon Time Strangers. So, you know, moving on, essentially. But I digress. In terms of story and its capability to tell one, I do think this falls surprisingly flat. 5 out of 10. You know, I think there should be a lot more journals hidden throughout the world about not even just the main bosses, but even some of the villagers that the game has seemingly implemented to further advise the lore. Now, maybe it's too early for this to happen in Palworld, but it would be a nice, I think, change that maybe they could, if they were paid enough, that being Palworld, they could do this, but I don't think they would. I don't know. Let's have all the characters, all the human characters anyway, be voiced. I think that would add a lot of flavor to the characters outside of their gimmicks, because I do think that their gimmicks are obvious. I just think that you know, having them explore some of their own material would be a nice change of pace. Now, there is dialogue that they do have, or at least one of them does, currently speaking. You can even do a quest to obtain one of them, as of the making of this video, because that wasn't originally a thing. So there were updates, and even the crossover with Terraria is in this cooperation. And you know, that is the craziest thing, is that if Nintendo was a much more chill company, I think Palworld would have been open to the idea of doing a collaboration with them. But no, Pokemon or slash Nintendo, I'm not sure, you know, which is the more of the you know, if it's whatever specific company owns Pokemon outside of Nintendo, or if it's just Nintendo overall. Hard to say, but regardless, either way, it's still not great that you had such a potential for a collaboration. And the thing is that Pokemon, I've seen Pokemon collaborate with Koei Tecmo before, so it's not like that would be anything new for them, so I'm a little baffled as to why they felt so insecure about another creature-based fighting game where you summon creatures. it's baffling considering that Digimon came around the same exact time as Pokemon, pretty much. Which is why way more people, even especially way back in the day, used to compare them all the time. And that's why I used to want a crossover between Pokemon and Digimon, in fact. Which is why I would find it hilarious if Palworld ended up doing a collaboration with Digimon, and Digimon saying yes. I think that would be hysterical. But hey, that's only what one person can bring to the table in terms of funny potentials for video games. Anyway, so while the story isn't anything to write home about, there is still the gameplay. And this is where a bulk of the game does shine. Though there are still a few things that need to be ironed out clearly, but still. So of course, you start off pretty much just in your bare clothes. You have just pretty much, it's a survival, it's a, pretty much a base survival game. I'm not sure if that's like what that genre is specifically called, but that's essentially what I would call it. So you grab materials to build your base while simultaneously picking up pals. Once you pick up a pal, and create, objects like spheres to collect more pals, the game will slowly begin to open itself up with how the pals can interact with each object in your base to out in the field. So, for your home pals, you can feed your pals, you can have your pals mining, doing logging, electricity a little later on, I would say a little bit before mid-game, and planting to do food and stuff of that nature. And when you start to accumulate a grand number of pals, you can start to have them go out to these little dungeons where they can get even more equipment for you, the player, and then you have your attack pals. You are able to have 5 attack pals on you in your party at the same time. So you can sort of swap between pals mid-fight. So the game offers that, and as you move from island to island, the difficulty from inward to outward definitely spirals more and more. Though, it gives you a little taste of what the mid-game, and what I would say is definitely the mid-game, is this 30-level Mammoth that walks the first island. And it's meant at first to be a clear level of intimidation. Of course, when you come back and you're of that level and have the better gear, that looks a lot more like a doable capture rather than an this avoid at all cost boss that is overwhelming. Of course, there are still bosses nearby enough that are of your level as you're leveling, that are more suited to your the progression, the natural progression of the game. Though the game doesn't necessarily tell you where the next progression is, or at least it didn't initially. With the quest log added, I will say that it much more streamlines that level of progression and where you need to go next, and so on and so forth. So yes, that was added in at a certain point, pretty early on, I would say. So once you have a decent number of pals in your base, and once you have your full roster of pals in your party, or battle party, this is pretty much where the flow of Palworld is at its core. Your pals will be, recruiting more and more resources at your base constantly, and you, the player, will be capturing more and more pals to do with as you please, and you can assign them pretty much as to be allocated where they need to be. There are special devices that help with that. Say if there are pals that can do more than one thing, there is this little nightstand you can buy that can have them focus on one task rather than multitask all the time and run back and forth and get confused. So you can do that to help simplify things for each individual pal to your very liking. Another benefit that was added in at some certain point before the Terraria update was this customization option. Now, I would say I did complete the game without it, but looking at all the little things it does add or subtract, rather, is a nice touch. To convenience or inconvenience, depending on where you want to take it, I suppose, of Palworld. I've tried playing Palworld in a more randomized map, so you can even do that much. That makes the game substantially harder, because you kind of have to move along like other areas that you would think to not be so suitable for you to be in. Where you might have to capture the lower leveled pals. So, each level of progression is indicated by one of the towers. You can see that on the poster. So, the first one is generally around level 10 to like 20, like that's the range most players will probably get to before even getting into that, tower. And I will say I would probably estimate the first 3 to 4 towers are pretty straightforward and simple. It is definitely the last 2 towers, the ones that explicitly that they added, I believe, the Moonflower one and the, Frost one, the Frost Tower, were definitely levels of escalation that, there was a level cap when the Terraria update happened, that even that, with that update, it barely feels like you can scrape by on the base settings anyway. So, yeah, the game's level of escalation does lose a little bit less of its luster on the higher levels, and what is required for your base. One thing that is lucky about it, I feel, is that your more base materials, you'll probably usually find a reason to keep things around for a long period of time. Like, for example, there is a base stone mine structure you can build, and you can get that pretty early on in the game, all things considered. That can save you some great deal of time, as from that, if you have that, and as well as a mill, like a water mill, you can essentially synthesize these little PAL crystals. These are your things that will help you make the PAL spheres themselves and objects of this nature. So there are object combinations that the base is typically sort of rotating in and out, sort of, in a way. And as of the update, they added the mine, the crystalline mine, and 65 is the current level cap, again, at the timing of this review. So, where would I like to see this game go, is the next best question. There is some jank in sometimes controlling the character. Once in a blue moon, the character depending on when and where you roll and when and where you get off of an object mounting a PAL. Sometimes your character will enter a walk state where they're sort of like floating and they're like moon kicking off of and they look like they're floating. This issue has not been fixed as the making of this video, as far as I can tell. There are other issues in terms of collision that this game has yet to fix. That is collision with some certain walls, that you can certainly roll into certain walls and get kind of stuck after a bit. So yeah, there are definitely some things that this game can tighten up on a base level, but in terms of like, you know, bigger progression, where would I like to see? You know, I thought that the game could use some more water pals. Luckily Terraria did fix that, a little bit anyway, due to there being islands and, you know, swimming pals in particular being added to that roster, because there was only really the one really notable water riding based PAL in the base game. So yeah, that was not great, but you know, there's more of them now, so there's that. It would be nice, I think, and it is a travesty, because with what Nintendo had to do, apparently the mount thing changed in and of itself. When you used to mount the PAL, when you used to do it, you would like glide on the PALs as an example. That is no longer the case, and each, you know, it would be each unique PAL, so like that is like I feel like that is a direct consequence of something that Pokemon and / Nintendo did. So there are definitely some certain things that fell off you know, that could not be avoided, I suppose, in that case of Palworld, which again is very unfortunate, as I do think that because, you know, this game has a lot of surprising amount of care in it. Like, for example, when you pet your PAL, each PAL has unique animation in terms of when you do that, you petting it, that being. Each PAL even works differently. So again, a lot of work went into the making of these PALs, clearly. So to see at least a borrow of that be disrupted is a little discouraging, I suppose. I think I would like to see more ground rideable PALs. I do think that those are surprisingly still a little bit limited. At least fast ones. There are 2 fast ones that you sort of kick off pretty early with. It's only until where you get to the end game where you get like these other 2. I kind of just stuck with the one I had because it does the job of getting you to point A to point B. But you know, in terms of base stuff, yes, there is something actually. There was this add-on that Palworld added, which was this table which you can add in abilities if your PAL was missing it. Now you have to pay into it in-game, luckily, to do this. It's pretty easy to make money in Palworld, so that's not the issue. My issue is that this table currently doesn't hold all of the abilities. Now, the way I would fix it is, say if you have gotten the ability on a PAL that you really, really like, and you like to share it with other PALs, you put that PAL on the table, spend the same amount of money, and then that skill gets added to the list, as an example. And Next up, another thing that I think would be nice in terms of quality of life, or bring people back in, is they do have an arena, which is a nice little okay side content. Yeah, and you can get certain rewards and indeed certain abilities. However, unrelated to that, one thing I do think that Palworld can fix on is the breeding. So you are able to breed your pals, male, female, obviously. That's not my issue. What is my issue is that let's say if you're trying to get a specific pal, the game does not tell you what pals get you what pals in the breeding system. All of that can only be found online, and I feel like there should be an upgraded pal breeding station added to the video game, and it would work as such. Once you breed 2 pals and they breed whatever, that gets added to the list. So you start with 0, you breed 2 pals, and the 3rd pal is born, and that gets added the first to the list of combinations that you can do in Palworld. And also, if there are going to be added pals, I think that doing pals that can only be done through breeding, it would be a nice touch to the system, because as of currently, again, I do feel like the breeding system is, especially with the table as a function added in, just giving your pals set abilities, a good chunk of them anyway, really undermines the pal breeding base, with the exception of you synthesizing a whole lot of the same type of pal into your main pal. There's this 4-star system where you can pretty much get like mini buffs to your stats to do this to your pal. But certain quests give you items at this point, so at least you can, if you have your main focus, big pal that's going to pretty much do everything on your journey, then this is a good quality of life. Having the breeding station be a place where you can actually see what you're doing, and again, even get some new pals that aren't associated with, with the initial set of pals that you can sort of find in the world. Only breedable pals. That being, again, what I'm trying to get at here. Now, one thing that does set Pokemon aside from both Pokemon and Digimon is that none of the pals have evolution yet, to my knowledge, yet. So, again, I'm a little surprised that Nintendo even tried doing what they did, but whatever. I suppose if they were really petty, that being Palworld, they could add in evolution just to piss off Nintendo and Pokemon again for the 4th time, just to see if they can fuck around and find out a 4th time. That would be quite tremendous, but I wouldn't want to push that on Palworld and its creators, that's for sure. So, just adding more pals in general would probably be the preferable method that I would be advocating for at this juncture, in terms of just like what I would like to see. And of course, most importantly, actually giving us access to that tree island. How many more new pals that we'll introduce, how many more side quests. The sky's the limit on that one, so there's still a lot to there's still potential for a Palworld, essentially. What is the maximum level going to be? Is it going to be 99? It's currently 65, again, as the making of this video. That's pretty close to 99. It's, 30-ish levels in there, not breaching 100. So, 30 levels of island nonsense is, I think you could find a way to make that work, I think, and make that progression feel fulfilling. But yeah, in terms of a current score, with the messiness of the little things that they need to fix and add on, I think a current score of a 6 out of 10 is what I can do at best currently. If they succeed, I think this game can work its way up to a 7, even potentially an 8 out of 10. But we'll have to wait and see to see what extent Palworld will do its finale updates. So that's my review of Palworld for now. And again, if Palworld does do its big updates, you can expect more videos, and for me to cancel that finale and to number it and then continue on Palworld journey and make a new review. I won't be deleting this review, as I do think that is cowardice, and I want to stand by what I had said at this point in time of the making of said video. But again, I think I've stressed enough in said video that this is before, things could be finalized. Anyway, that's my full review of Palworld, again, for now. Until next time, everyone, if you like this video, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description when I head you to my petition about small YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, we can help support me, my channel directly, and third, to my Discord server, where you can join, collab, shield, all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.